You better lace him up tight, Errol Spence. It could be a long night. Hey, it's another edition of Coffee with the Goose. So glad you joined me again. I am the Goose, and we're getting closer and closer to the big fight in Vegas on August 21st. Manny Pacquiao against Errol Spence Jr. I got all the details for you during this show, and we'll also release the game plan for Manny Pacquiao. His great legendary coach Freddie Roach and Manny have pretty much laid it out as they get ready to do battle with the undefeated Texan Errol Spence Jr. But first, gotta have our coffee. You know that our coffee very strong, like my opinion, and got some creamer to make it sweet, just like me. Okay, let's go through some of the details. I know you've heard it before, but hey, we want the facts. Nothing but the facts, right? The fight, again, will be August 21st in Las Vegas, Nevada, the home of all the great fights. It'll be at the T-Mobile Arena. Two champions, okay? Errol Spence Jr., a native of DeSoto, Texas, near Dallas. He's a great young fighter. 31, so not young, but he's in his prime. He is 27-0 with 21 KOs. He has held the IBF welterweight title belt since 2017. He has successfully defended that 5 times. His last 3 fights have been against world championship fighters. He's won all of them, of course. Although, being a knockout artist, 21 out of 27 fights have been knockouts. He has not knocked out his last 3 opponents, those being Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter, and Danny Garcia. The Porter fight, by the way, is when he won his WBC welterweight title. Now, Spence is a welterweight, like I said, the 147-pound weight limit. That's the weight limit on weigh-in night, which is the night before the fight. And, of course, they usually put on a couple pounds, in the hours leading up to the fight, although Pacquiao usually doesn't. Spence, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch reach. Manny Pacquiao, meanwhile, is 5'5.5" with a 67-inch reach. So a decided advantage, height and reach for Errol Spence Jr. Pacquiao, of course, from the Philippines, 8-division world champion. Nobody's ever done that. 5-division lineal champion. Nobody's ever done that. He is the WBA champion in recess, champion, whatever they call it. He won his title against Keith Thurman a little more than 2 years ago, and for some strange reason, we went through that in a couple of shows ago, why they took that away from him and made him champion in recess, I have no idea. When you look at the facts, it makes no sense at all. But be that as it is or whatever, he's still a champion. So this is kind of a unification bout. Terrence Crawford is the other welterweight title holder who holds a belt, and who knows, maybe he'll enter the picture during the next fight, right? Pacquiao, 62-7 with 2 draws and 39 knockouts. His last fight against Keith Thurman, July 20th, our anniversary, by the way, 2 years ago. Now, here's again, just giving you the facts, just so there's no misunderstanding. Yes, Pacquiao has been out of action for 25 months, a little over 2 years. So is there ring rust? Well, we don't know. He says that it's an advantage to him because he's 42 years old, gave his body time to rest and recuperate and get prepared for the next fight. So is 25 months too much time off? Well, how about Errol Spence Jr.? He's been off 22 months. So there's so much for the ring rust. Both guys have to worry about that, right? And I'll remind you of a fact I unveiled during the last show. Yes, Errol Spence Jr. is undefeated, but when you count the amateur ranks, he's lost more than Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao has lost 4 times in the amateur ranks, making it a total of 11 losses. Errol Spence Jr. lost 12 times in the amateur ranks, including the Olympics. So, neither one of these guys is, unbeatable. Neither one of them. No boxer is unbeatable, right? So what is Manny Pacquiao's game plan going to be? That's the gist of this show. He and his great Hall of Fame coach, Freddie Roach, have pretty much laid it out for us in the last couple of days. It's going to be, there aren't many fighters who are really similar to Errol Spence Jr. So even though this may irritate you, I'm going to use Antonio Margarito as an example, only because he's so tall with such good reach. And don't diss Antonio Margarito. Don't say, well, he's not Errol. I know he's not Errol Spence Jr., but he was a champion, okay? Don't diss him. He was a great champion. This is kind of, the game plan he used for Antonio Margarito. In and out. In trade flurries, trade combinations, they get out of dodge. Don't stand there in the pocket. And Freddie Roach talked about this. Don't stand too long in the pocket and trade blows with this guy because he's very dangerous. That is Errol Spence Jr. Get in, deliver the combination, get out. And take advantage of the quickness. And when I say quickness, it's not just the hand speed. That's much quicker than Spence, but the foot speed. That's really what makes Manny Pacquiao such a dangerous opponent. He can stand there and trade blows with you. He's more than capable of doing that with 39 KOs on his record. But he'll move side to side, in and out, and he'll come at you with weird angles. And you may think you know where the next punch is coming from, but you probably don't. And that's what makes it so hard for you to prepare to fight Manny Pacquiao. There's nobody like him. So Pacquiao has to use his, obviously his hand speed, but his foot speed as well. Going side to side, in and out, using those strange angles that makes it so uncomfortable for the other fighter. Now, here's something else Pacquiao needs to do in order to beat him. And he can beat him. There's no question. Frustrated. That's another strength that Pacquiao has. Yes, he's intimidating, but you're not going to be intimidating really until you start landing some shots. And when you start tagging your opponent from different angles and with power, eventually they're going to get frustrated because they're going to come to the realization that I don't know how to deal with this. I'm very uncomfortable. This is something I don't know how to defend against. And nobody has against Manny Pacquiao. I've said this before, only two fighters have really frustrated Pacquiao, and they're great combination fighter, great fighters off their heels and who are able to respond. And those, of course, Juan Manuel Marquez and Floyd Mayweather Jr. Errol Spence Jr. does not have the same style as either one of these guys. So he's going to be frustrated, and that is going to be one of Pacquiao's weapons. Once he frustrates him and makes him doubt himself, it's not doubting whether that guy can hurt you. It's doubting yourself whether you can prevent him from hurting you. And, you'll wear him down mentally. A lot of Pacquiao's opponents say the same thing. After a while, your brain just gets tired because you don't know how to respond any better in rounds 6, 7, 8, 9 than you did in the first round because it's just so unorthodox. Now, another advantage Pacquiao, a weapon that he uses is he, and again, if you've seen Pacquiao fight over the years, you know this. He is a master at fakes and feints. Is he coming in? Oh, yeah, he's faking you out so much, and again, it wears you down mentally. And that's one of the things you'll see him do against Errol Spence Jr. And he likes to lure his opponent in. I don't know if he's going to do that against Spence, but he's done it against many great fighters, Eric Morales and Miguel Cotto. Great Hall of Fame championship fighters who are badasses and knockout artists. And you'll see him do it, and he might do it against Errol Spence Jr. He'll lean back against the ropes, which is where Freddie Roach doesn't want him to go, and he'll tap his gloves together. Basically, come on in, come on, I'll let you hit me. He's luring you in. It's a bait, and the fighters who do that set themselves up for punishment. He'll turn around and deliver the blows that you're not ready for. And if he starts doing that against Errol Spence Jr., it's going to be a very long night for Spence. Now, and he has to counter the jab. Now, this is another area of Pacquiao's fight game that is so effective. You know, when he first came to the U.S., although he's already a championship fighter, Freddie Roach taught him how to use his offhand, his right hand, and be more of a complete fighter. And one area that he has used so effectively over the years, and he'll against right-handers, orthodox fighters, is countering the jab with the right hand, the right hook. Now again, Spence is a left-hander, but I'm pretty sure that Freddie Roach and Pacquiao have already devised a plan to deal with that very effective, powerful jab that Errol Spence Jr. has, even though he's a right-hander just like Pacquiao. Now, and finally, I want to remind you that both of these guys are left-handed. If you're an orthodox fighter, or in any sport, if you're a right-hander and you're dealing with a left-hander, it's frustrating. It throws you off. You're not used to the angle. So is that still an advantage if you're fighting another left-hander? Yes, it is. Now again, I'm going to use a different sport for an example, but it's the same concept. Okay, playing basketball, I'm left-handed. Okay, and I know I used that not odd, but unusual coming at you from a different angle that you're not used to. And when I'm playing another left-hander, I'm left-handed, but I'm not used to playing against the left-hander. See what I mean? Spence, he's left-handed. It doesn't matter. Either left-handed or right-handed, you're not used to playing a left-hander. Even if you're left-handed. You follow me? Does that make any sense? Okay. Keep in mind that Pacquiao has never lost to a left-hander. Never. He's fought many. The last one was David Diaz, and he beat the snot out of him and KO'd him face first in the canvas. It was a bloody mess. Now, what about Errol Spence Jr.? Well, he's undefeated. No, he's not. He has lost 12 bouts in the amateur ranks. And don't just discount, wow, that's amateurs. They were, not golden gloves. That's, what's the amateur competition? I can't remember. Well, the Olympics, lost to a left-hander. He's lost 12 times, Errol Spence Jr. At least, because I haven't been able to find out whether there are more, at least 4 of those losses that Errol Spence has suffered were against left-handers. Okay? Look up his loss in the Olympics against a lefty. 2 of those 4 losses were against the same guy. So the second time around wasn't any better for Errol Spence Jr. It could be a long night for Errol Spence. It could be. Like any sport, it's not a matter of are you capable of winning? Of course you are, Errol Spence Jr. I don't doubt him at all. He's a great undefeated champion. Of course he can win. But will he? Does he have the right game plan? Does he have the tools? Does he have the ring intelligence to adjust to Pacquiao's unorthodox feints and fakes and being left-handed and the great footwork? I don't know. It's going to be a great challenge. And even though Errol Spence Jr. has already said, this isn't my biggest test, that fight against Kell Brook was. This ain't no Kell Brook you're fighting. This is Manny Pacquiao, and there's only one Manny Pacquiao. You better lace him up tight, Errol Spence. It could be a long night, and I'm not going to give a prediction now. I will here in the next week. It's going to be a great fight. We're going to be there, by the way. My great producer, Jude, and his family will be with me and my wife, Raquel, and our kids in Vegas. And we're going to bring you lots of interviews. We're so excited for this fight. August 21st at T-Mobile Arena. And who knows who's going to win? But it's good. That's what makes it fun, right? It's talking about the great strengths and weaknesses each guy has and what they can do, what they have to watch out for. we'll keep talking about this right up until they ring that first bell, right? That's it for this edition of Coffee with the Goose. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for subscribing. And keep those comments coming. I'd love to hear from you guys. And you take care. We'll talk to you again soon.